Chapter 1. A quiet morning. Emma woke to the soft light of dawn slipping through her curtains. The air felt cool and fresh. She yawned and stretched, thinking of the day ahead. Today was her first day back at school after summer break, and her heart beat like a drum in her chest. She loved school, but she missed her mother's warm smile every morning. Emma's mother had passed away last winter, and every sunrise still felt a little empty without her. She sat up and looked at the small, wooden box on her bedside table. Inside were photographs of happier times. Emma and her mother baking cookies, building snowmen, and reading bedtime stories. Emma touched her mother's picture gently and whispered, "I'll try to be brave today." She hugged her pillow, closed her eyes, and felt a tiny wave of comfort. Downstairs, the kitchen smelled of toast and fresh strawberries. Emma's father stood by the counter, pouring milk into bowls of cereal. He walked over and ruffled her hair. "Good morning, Em," he said softly. His voice trembled just a little, the way it always did since her mother died. Emma smiled and hugged him. "Morning, Dad." They ate breakfast together, sharing the comfortable silence that spoke louder than words. Outside, the world was waking up. Birds chirped outside the window, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the old oak tree in their yard. Emma paused before leaving, looking at the tree that she and her mother had planted the year before. She placed her hand on its rough bark, feeling the life pulsing within. "Help me find the courage," she whispered, then picked up her backpack and stepped onto the path to school. Chapter 2. A New Friend. The walk to school was familiar, but felt strange without her mother's hand in hers. Emma forced herself to look around and notice details: the bright yellow flowers lining the sidewalk, the distant hum of a lawnmower, the smell of fresh bread from Mrs. Lee's bakery. She breathed in deeply and walked on. Halfway there, she spotted something small and furry huddled near a fence. It was a dog, a stray, with matted fur and sad eyes. Emma froze. The dog looked thin and cold. She knelt beside him. "Hello there," she whispered, reaching out a trembling hand. The dog flinched but did not move away. Emma's heart clenched. "Poor thing," she said. She gently stroked his head. The dog's big brown eyes met hers, and for a moment, Emma felt as if they understood each other's loneliness. She rummaged through her backpack and found a granola bar. Slowly, she broke off a piece and offered it. The dog sniffed it, then gently took it from her hand. Emma smiled. It was the smallest kindness, but it felt powerful. "Come on," she said softly. "Let's find you some water." She led him to a small garden with a bird bath filled with water. The dog drank eagerly, then looked back at Emma as if to say, "Thank you." Emma patted his head and looked at her watch. She had to get to school. With a heavy heart, she said, "I wish I could take you with me, but I can't." She stood and walked away, glancing back only once. The dog remained by the fence, his eyes following her until she was out of sight. Chapter 3. Memories at school was both comforting and lonely. Emma's friends greeted her with chatter about summer vacations and new clothes, but Emma felt half in her world and half lost in memories. In history class, she watched the clock with growing anxiety. She needed to see the dog again. As soon as the bell rang, Emma dashed out, leaving her books behind. She raced back to the fence, her heart pounding. The dog was there, waiting. Relief and joy flooded her chest. She knelt again. "You're here," she whispered. The dog wagged his tail slowly, and Emma laughed, a soft, happy sound that surprised her. Every day after school, Emma visited the dog. She named him Shadow because he followed her like one. She fed him scraps from her lunch, gave him water, and spoke to him about her day. Somehow, Shadow made Emma feel less alone. His quiet presence eased the ache in her chest. One afternoon, school ended early for a holiday. Emma ran to Shadow, but he was gone. Panic seized her. She called, "Shadow! Shadow!" Her voice echoed through the empty street. Tears stung her eyes. She searched every corner, behind bushes, under cars, by the bakery, but there was no sign of him. Emma sank to her knees, sobbing. "Please come back," she cried into the silent air. Just then, a low whine came from behind a trash can. Emma crawled forward and found Shadow curled up, his fur tangled and dirty. Relief and anger swirled inside her. "You scared me," she scolded gently as she freed him. Shadow licked her face and Emma hugged him tightly. "I won't let you go again," she promised. Chapter 4. A family of 2 Emma brought Shadow home that evening, despite knowing her father might not agree. She led him into the yard and watched as he sniffed around cautiously. He seemed to enjoy the soft grass under his paws. Emma walked to the front door and took a deep breath. Inside, her father looked up from his book. "Emma, who is this?" he asked, surprise and concern in his voice. Emma's heart pounded. "His name is Shadow," she said softly. "He's a stray. He needs a home." Her father sighed and set his book aside. "Emma, you know we can't keep a stray without checking if he belongs to someone." Emma's face fell. She had hoped, no, prayed, that he would say yes. But she nodded and held out the leash she had borrowed from Mrs. Lee next door. "I'll take him to the vet tomorrow. He's hungry and dirty." Her father looked at Shadow, who sat quietly beside Emma, tilting his head as if understanding every word. Then her father smiled sadly. "All right. Let's help him together." Emma beamed. She hugged her father, tears of joy welling up. Shadow barked softly, as if in approval. That night, Emma slept better than she had in months. Shadow snored softly at the foot of her bed, a comforting reminder that she was not alone. Chapter 5. Doctor's Orders. The next morning, Emma and her father took Shadow to Dr. Patel's clinic. Shadow trembled when the vet examined him, but Emma stroked his ear. "It's okay, boy," she whispered. Dr. Patel found that Shadow was underweight and had an old injury on his leg. "He needs good food, rest, and maybe some medicine for his leg," she said kindly. "But he's a brave dog, Emma promised to follow every instruction. She helped fill out the forms and carry Shadow home. On the walk back, Shadow limped a little, but he kept his head high. Emma matched her steps to his, careful not to hurry him. At home, Emma prepared a cozy bed of blankets in the laundry room. She mixed his special dog food and watched with relief as Shadow ate slowly. That night, Emma lay in bed listening to Shadow's soft snores. She thought of her mother and wondered if her mother would have liked Shadow. Of course she would, Emma decided. Her mother loved all creatures. Chapter 6. Rainy days, it rained for 3 days straight. Emma worried about Shadow getting wet and cold. She wrapped him in towels, patted him dry, and built a small shelter in the yard with a tarp. She spent her afternoon sitting beside him, reading out loud from her favorite storybook. Shadow listened, his ears twitching at her voice. On the last rainy day, Emma felt a familiar emptiness settle in her chest. She missed her mother's comforting voice the most when it rained. She hugged her knees and looked at Shadow. He nudged her hand and licked her cheek. "Thank you for being here," Emma said, tears escaping down her face. Shadow licked her tears away. Emma laughed through her sadness. She leaned her head against his warm side and let herself cry. When she finally stopped, the rain had slowed to a light drizzle. Emma stood and brushed her hair. She felt lighter. Shadow wagged his tail softly as if proud of her. Chapter 7. A community's heartword of Shadow's plight spread through the neighborhood. Mrs. Lee from the bakery brought leftover bread for Emma to feed him. Mr. Carter next door fixed the broken fence so Shadow could stay safe in the yard. Even the children at school started bringing bits of food for him after classes. Emma felt a surge of warmth. In helping Shadow, she had helped build something new in her town. One Saturday morning, Emma's father and she set up a small table in front of their house. On it were home-baked biscuits, lemonade, and a sign, "Help Shadow find a home." Neighbors stopped by, dropped coins into the jar, and petted Shadow. Emma told everyone about how she found him and how much he meant to her. The jar filled quickly. By afternoon, they had enough to pay for Shadow's vet bills and some extra for dog supplies. Emma hugged her father tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for believing in me." Her father kissed her forehead. "You believed in Shadow first," he said. That evening, Emma and her father took Shadow for a long walk. The sun set in shades of orange and pink. Shadow trotted happily beside them, his legs stronger each day. Emma smiled, feeling hope bloom inside her. Chapter 8. Shadows and Sunlight. Months passed. Shadow grew healthier and stronger. His fur was glossy, and he had energy to run and play. Emma taught him simple tricks: sit, stay, and shake. Shadow learned quickly, his eyes shining with intelligence and loyalty. One afternoon, Emma sat under the oak tree with her journal. She wrote about the day she found Shadow and how he helped her heal. She wrote about her mother's smile and how she felt her mother's love in the rustling leaves and the dog's gentle nudge. Shadow lay beside her, head on her lap. Emma stroked his fur and whispered, "You're my sunshine on a cloudy day." Shadow tilted his head and let out a happy bark. That night, Emma dreamed of her mother, strong and smiling, walking beside her and Shadow beneath the oak tree. When she woke, sunlight warmed her face. She sat up and saw Shadow sleeping at the foot of her bed. Emma smiled and whispered, "We're a family, you and me." Chapter 9. A Promise of Tomorrow. Emma's first year back at school ended with good grades and new friendships. She still missed her mother, but the pain no longer felt so sharp. Shadow was there to comfort her on lonely days and to share in her joys. On the anniversary of her mother's passing, Emma and her father planted new flowers around the oak tree. In the center, they placed a small stone engraved with her mother's favorite phrase, "Love lives on." Emma knelt and ran her fingers over the letters. She turned to Shadow and smiled. "We'll keep her memory alive," Emma said firmly. Shadow barked in agreement. Emma realized that love was not something you lost. It was something you carried inside, growing stronger each day. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Emma hugged Shadow. Together they walked home, ready for whatever tomorrow might bring, because they had each other, and that was enough. Epilogue life in the quiet town continued. Emma graduated from middle school and went on to high school. Shadow grew older but remained her faithful friend. Each morning, Emma still placed her hand on the oak tree's bark and whispered, "Good morning, Mom." Then she called, "Shadow, let's go." Their footsteps faded down the path, side by side, two souls bound by love, loss, and the promise of new beginnings. Emma understood now that even in the darkest moments, a small act of kindness, like offering a granola bar to a stray dog, could change everything. And in that change, emotion found its truest form: compassion.